Hello and Happy New Year, scholars. Today we're going to begin working on our final writing assignment for quarter two. We will write an essay that compares Winnie from Tuck Everlasting and Rachel in the short story 11 that we just read today in class. This part of this video, our objective is I can deconstruct the prompt and understand the structure or setup for our Unit 2 essay. So if you take a look at those Legos, think about what that word deconstruct means. All right, get excited. This is your first essay of your 6th grade year, so we're going to be doing a lot of the work together, step by step. Don't you worry. So here's the writing prompt we're going to be answering. It's very similar to the one you'll see on our Unit 2 exam, so this essay is going to be great practice. Let's deconstruct or take it apart all together. The first step, of course, is to read it all the way through. So, looking at the words in purple. You have read the novel Tuck Everlasting and the short story 11, two stories that include protagonists who describe their experience of growing up. Write an essay that compares how Winnie and Rachel feel about growing up. Be sure to include an example of how each protagonist responds to one moment of growing up. Okay, so it's telling me that I have read these two texts, which I have, and you have too, awesome. But there's a word in here that may be just a little confusing. Protagonists. Protagonists are just the main characters in our story. Pretty much, they're the good guys. Okay, so I've read it all the way through. I figured out a word I don't know. And you know what I'm noticing? This prompt is kind of like a word problem in math. I need to zoom in on just the important parts of it and figure out what I need to do. So I'm going to look for the verbs or the action words in this prompt. In the sentence that I just highlighted, we need to figure out what is it asking me to do. Yep, so looking at that second sentence, we can see the action words are write and compare. So now I know the verbs, but what am I going to be doing with each? Well, I have to write an essay, and I have to compare or find the difference between, the differences and similarities between how Winnie and Rachel feel about growing up. So we're writing that essay and we're comparing how Winnie and Rachel feel. What about this last sentence in green? It's the last part of the prompt. What is the verb in that last sentence? Yep, I need to include an example of how each protagonist responds to one moment of growing up. I need to write about how Winnie responds to one moment, and I need to write about how Rachel responds to one moment. Awesome. So now we know what we're being asked to do. Let's talk about how we're going to do it. Remember I said we were going to do this in parts? Well, each of these colorful boxes describes one paragraph of your essay. We've got the introduction where we're going to set up our essay. We've got two body paragraphs, one race paragraph about how Rachel feels about growing up and how she responds to a moment of growing up. And then same thing for Winnie. One race paragraph about how Winnie feels about growing up and how she responds to one moment. Then we'll have a conclusion that will wrap it all up. We're going to remind ourselves of our thesis or the claim, what growing up is like, what are the protagonists' likes, and what do they learn. Now this essay is kind of like a sandwich. So your introduction and your conclusion are the bun or the bread, and your body paragraphs are the meat or the veggies. They take a little longer to cook, right? So we're going to do those first and then come back to the introduction and the conclusion last. Then we will put it all together. Second, to check out the rubric for this essay. This is how you're going to get graded. Notice how it's divided up by race. So for your body paragraphs, you need to restate and answer the question. You need to cite your 3-star relevant evidence, and you need to explain that evidence. Altogether, your work is going to include at least 4 whole paragraphs with 4 to 5 sentences in your body paragraphs and 3 sentences in your introduction and conclusion. This may sound like a lot, but remember, we're going to work on this together and you'll be prepared to do it on your own later on in the future. In a minute, we're going to start collecting evidence for one of our body paragraphs. So let's take a quick little break. You're going to choose one of the things you see on your screen to do to give yourself a break. Either blink really quickly 20 times in a row, do 10 jumping jacks, give yourself a big hug and a squeeze, or get yourself a glass of water. Awesome. All right, let's start planning our essay. The objective for this part of our video is I can collect relevant 3-star evidence that responds to the question, how do the protagonists in 11 and Tuck Everlasting feel about growing up? How do they respond to one moment of growing up? All right, so our very first step for planning our essay about Winnie and Rachel is to collect evidence. Yep. Before we start though, do you remember what 3-star relevant evidence is? Awesome. Today we're going to just begin working on our 2 body paragraphs. During this flex time video, I will help you with one about Winnie, and then on your own, you'll work on the one about Rachel. So remember, these body paragraphs are the meat and the veggies of our sandwich, so they'll take a bit more effort and time to complete. We'll come back to the introduction and the conclusion, the bread of our sandwich, a little bit later on. What we're going to do now is steps 1, 2, and 3, right? We're going to collect some evidence. You can do split screen with me at the same time, or you can watch this video and fill in steps 1, 2, and 3 afterwards. Regardless, everyone is going to do steps 4 and 5 on your own. Do split screen and do the assignment along with me right now, or do steps 1, 2, and 3 along with me right now. You're going to access this through Class Notebook or through OneNote. So you're going to go to Canvas. Once you get to our English 6 page, you're going to scroll down. We are in week 8. So if you're in Hopkins, you're going to go ahead and click the Hopkins class notebook. If you're in Howard, of course, you'll click this one. Once you get there, you're going to find your name. You're going to go to Q2 ELA and then writing, where you'll find an assignment called Winnie vs. Rachel Essay Planner. So I'm going to pretend like I'm at Hopkins, find my name at the left. Then once I click my name, I will click Unit 2 ELA, writing, and then Winnie vs. Rachel Essay Planner, right? First, let's complete step 1 and just reread our prompt, right? It's in purple. You have read the novel Tuck Everlasting and the short story 11, 2 stories that include protagonists who describe their experience of growing up. Write an essay that compares how Winnie and Rachel each feel about growing up. Be sure to include an example of how each protagonist responds to one moment of growing up. All right, so steps 2 and 3 ask us to read chapter 25 from Tuck Everlasting and gather 3-star evidence that answers the writing prompt, then explain your evidence. So I'm just going to scroll down until I see this red text. This is chapter 25 of Tuck Everlasting, when Winnie's home and reflecting on what had happened. All right, so we just need to check out really how Winnie feels about growing up. So looking at this text, remember we've already read it. So let's see, what feelings does she show? I'm going to highlight them as I see them. Winnie dropped down cross-legged on the grass. 2 weeks had gone by since the night of the storm, the night of May Tuck's escape, and May had not been found. There was no trace of her at all, or of Tuck, or Miles, or Jessie. Winnie was profoundly grateful for that, but she was also profoundly tired. It had been a trying 2 weeks. So already I have found something that she's feeling. She's profoundly grateful. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. To do that, I'm going to click right before the part that I want to highlight. I'm going to click so that I can see my cursor kind of blinking there next to Winnie's name. Then I'm going to hold down and on my trackpad drag all the way until the end of the part that I want to highlight. Then as soon as it's all gray, I'm going to let go. I'm going to see this little box pop up and I'm going to highlight it. You can choose any color that you want. Right now I'm going to stick with yellow. Let's keep reading and skimming. Now, since we've read this already, I know as I skim, I know that paragraphs 2 and 3 are her reflecting on the night that she helped May escape. In paragraph 4, she talks a lot about her family and about the Tucks. But when I get to paragraph 5, that's where she starts talking about how other kids started to see her after that situation. So since that part caught my eye, I'm going to start reading from the end of paragraph 5. So she's talking about the other children. They were impressed by what she had done. She was a figure of romance to them now, where before she had been too neat, too prissy, almost somehow too clean to be a real friend. Getting at that second question in the prompt, right? A moment that she responds to. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. And then we're going to keep reading it. Paragraph 6. Winnie sighed and plucked at the grass around her ankles. School would open soon. It wouldn't be so bad. In fact, she thought as her spirits lifted, this year it might be rather nice. So now I see a few key words here that kind of get at how she's feeling, right? She's saying it wouldn't be so bad. Her spirits are lifting. So this is going to be good evidence for us that shows us how she feels and how she's responding to this moment. So I'm going to highlight it. Great, so now I've got a few options for evidence, right? From Tuck Everlasting. Now, step 2 asks me to put that evidence that I found in this orange box. So we're going to take our 3-star relevant evidence. We'll take this first one first. We're going to highlight it again. So I'm going to hold down until it's all gray. Then I'm going to let go. I'm going to press the CTRL or control button on my keyboard and a C at the same time. You won't see anything change. Then I'm going to come back down to step 2. I'm going to press that CTRL button in the bottom left of my keyboard again. This time I'm going to press V at the same time. And there you go, it pasted. I'm going to do the same thing with my other piece of 3-star evidence. I'm going to press Control and C at the same time. Then I'm going to come down again and press Control and V at the same time, and there it is, pasted in our box. So now I've got my evidence highlighted, pasted. I need to move on to step 3, which asks us, how does this evidence show how Winnie feels about growing up, or how she responds to a moment when she grows up? So this is going to be my E section of my race paragraph about Winnie. So in order to get started, I'm going to use the sentence starter we often use for our E paragraph. This evidence shows, then I'm going to try and restate the question, right? This evidence shows that Winnie feels. So we've got our sentence starter. So now we need a word, right, to describe how she feels. So I'm going to go into my Essay Resources tab here, right underneath the document you're working in. And I'm going to think, okay, on the one hand, we know she's feeling grateful or glad, right? But I also know she's feeling a little bit unsure or even troubled. So I'm going to go back into my essay planner. I'm going to say that Winnie feels troubled about growing up. But I'm not done yet. This isn't my explanation. I need to say a little more about how this evidence shows she's troubled. So I know that she, went through that situation with May, or helping May escape, which we know she's very proud of, but that was a very difficult situation, right? Even in our evidence, we can see it says it had been a trying 2 weeks. I write that. This evidence shows that Winnie feels troubled about growing up because even though it had been even though she had helped May and the Tucks, it had been a challenging time. She is ready to move on. So now we need to make sure that we answer the second part of our prompt, right? Which asks about how she responds to a moment. So for that, we're going to use our second piece of evidence about how the other children responded to her. So we'll start with this evidence shows that Winnie's response to the moment is, and then once again, we're going to need to go back to our essay resources to find a word that can describe how she may be responding, right? It says they were impressed by what she had done. She was a figure of romance to them now, where before she had been too neat, too prissy, almost somehow too clean to be a real friend. So, let's see. How might she be feeling? Let's see. So, we know in the text the kids are looking at her differently. It even says she's excited to go back to school. So I think I'm going to look in this energized section. And I'm going to pick the word renewed, right? She's almost like a new person here. So I'm going to go back to my planning document and scroll down. This evidence shows that Winnie's response to the moment is renewed. She feels like she has a new sense of herself, and the other students look at her in a new way. She is looking forward to growing up. So, we've got our step 2 done, right? We found our evidence. We've got our step 3 done, meaning we explained it. So your next step is to do the exact same thing with this passage from 11. You're going to complete step 4, right? Find your 3-star evidence that answers our prompt about how Rachel feels about growing up and evidence that shows how she responds to a moment. Then you will complete step 5. Explain. Do that pair sentences about how the evidence shows how she feels and how she responds, okay? Once again, I'm going to show you how to access this assignment in case you haven't been typing along with me. Your English Canvas page, you're going to scroll down until week 8. We're here in week 8. You're going to click on either Hopkins or Howard class notebook. You're going to find your name. You're going to click on Q2 ELA and then writing. All right. You will see your Winnie versus Rachel essay planner document in there, and you should make sure you complete steps 1 through 5. All right. You guys are amazing. We will continue working on the next sections later on. If you have any questions, you all know you can reach out to Mr. Cross and I. The best way to do that is to send us an inbox message here in Canvas. Just click the inbox message or button and send us a message. You all are amazing. Have a wonderful rest of your day.